This is the first ever episode of Filmmakers Guide to the Industry podcast. I'm Joshua Long, and I'm with my co-host, Kevin Echemendia. This is a two-parter, and we talk to Andrew Ortoski, Gaffer and Product Photographer. I go a long way back with Andrew. We went to film school together. We've worked on a lot of projects after film school. He's a great person on and off set. He has an almost encyclopedic knowledge of film history, set lighting, composition, all those things. And his resume really speaks for itself. He's worked on David Makes Man, Springbreakers, Tomorrowland, and most notably gaffed Kevin Smith's latest film, Kilroy Was Here.
All right, guys. So pilot episode of Filmmakers Guide to the Industry.
Yeah.
Pretty
Don't
exciting.
look so weird, Andrew.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, as we just said, we have our dear friend Andrew Ortoski here. He is a gaffer in the area. Been in the industry for how long, Andrew?
About 12 years now.
Oh, that's a good part of your life there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 years? 12 years is a long time.
Yeah, my professional career.
So let's give some context as to how we all know each other.
I would also say that he's a DP and like a photographer.
Well, definitely the product photography side. I mean, you do a lot of that for Two Stories Media, for those of you that don't know. But yeah, DP, I mean,
Primary gaffer, but DP and
Yeah,
photographer too.
I can definitely shoot.
yeah, you do some freelance work. You have some side gigs that involve you actually holding the camera, not a light.
Yep. But most out there in the world of production know me as a gaffer.
Yeah.
That's mainly how I make my living.
So on that note, can you give us the 60-second edition of how your career has kind of progressed and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, so right out of college, I started working in a rental house here in, Pinellas County, and met some people, networked, right? It's all about networking. From there, got on sets, learned that I wanted to work in the lighting and grip world departments, started working on movies, got in the union, started working on the bigger shows, learned that, how it's really done out in the real world. College was great and everything, but you really learn the on-the-job training on the job, which is working on the shows with the people that have been doing it for years and all the veterans. And then started making my own connections to the freelance world and commercial markets. Did a bunch of indie work as a department head, where I got my feet wet in learning how to communicate with different departments and working with different cinematographers and just figuring out the process. And of course, in production, there's always problems, and it's all about problem solving and managing those expectations to get your day, stay on budget, and keep the crew happy. So there's a lot of different pieces and balancing acts involved. And from there, I went for a couple of years. I ran a production company that was out of Clearwater. That's where I really got my feet wet as a DP/product photographer. It was a requirement of the job that we have collateral created on a budget. So what they do, they use their in-house guys, and we figured it out and made it work. It was a good experience. And from there, I took that experience and went back to freelance and contract work. And yeah, here I am.
Yeah, it's funny. Everything that he said in that little, let's call it a 90-second spiel, is pretty much everything we plan on talking about on this episode. So
Yeah, sure.
we'll kind of unpackage it one piece at a time. And the first one is you said you came out of school, but you didn't tell us where. So
Oh yeah, I went to University of Tampa, studied film and media arts.
And
That's where you met me.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah,
I was
that's where I
going
met
with that.
Josh,
So
yeah.
you two have known each other since
Over a decade now,
yeah.
which is crazy.
2007.
Eight.
Eight.
Eight is when I officially went to Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah.
And then when you guys were at the other production company, that's when Andrew and I connected.
Yep.
We actually both had a freelance job.
Correct.
For a local musician. And,
Yeah, pretty well-known guy.
And you were gaffing, and I was one of the cam ops, and I just kind of jumped in when all my responsibilities were done, and we were like an hour and a half from recording, and yet you didn't have any help. And I remember hopping on the ladder and just being like, hey, I'm Kevin. I don't want to sit there and be on my phone. I'm bored already.
It was great. It was good to have somebody else there to help me.
I felt weird not helping when you were the only G&E member. Like you literally...
really everybody else on that show had no idea or had never been around that type of equipment.
Yeah, and
So
I mean,
they
even
didn't know.
then at the time, my experience was minimal, but I still understood how to
Right.
attach a light and plug in power without getting shocked. So I had the baseline requirements to be helpful. I knew what a Cardellini was. I knew what a Mayfer was, and
you knew how to go on a ladder and not kill anybody with the light above their head.
Yeah,
for
which
rigging, which was good. Talk about managing expectations. They wanted me to rig that whole place in like 6 hours. And
whole studio
like
setup.
30 lights and one guy and one ladder. And there you go.
Math doesn't kick in very well for them apparently. So that's
So you mentioned like right out of college going to the production company, or not the production company,
the rental house,
and like working with them. What do you feel like got you into that so fast after college? Because you're ahead of a lot of people right coming out of film school to be able to go work at a rental house. So how did that happen? What do you feel like let you get that experience?
So what I didn't mention was I went to USF first, University of South Florida, and funny enough, I was studying electrical engineering. And when I was at that school, I was part of the Film and Video Association, I believe is what it was called. And from there is where I really made my first connections into the Tampa Bay market of different producers and crew members. And those producers and crew members working on their projects introduced me to some of the rental houses and kind of the key players in those places to get my name out there, just so they could start understanding me and who I am and, how hopefully I'm going to grow in this industry. So when I went to University of Tampa, I already had those relationships built. And then I went back to them saying, hey, I'm doing film now, not engineering. Can I get an internship here? So my last year at that school, at University of Tampa, I went to them and said, hey, I'm doing the film program. I need an internship into some sort of production. I asked them if I could do more of a trade internship. And they said, yeah, it'd be great to work at a rental house and get some hands-on experience with the equipment.
And that kind of dives into...
Not a lot of film programs have you do internships.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you're doing like producing or something along those lines. But
and we've been around a lot of students or kids, lately in this area especially, that the hands-on experience is kind of something that isn't given to you at a school. Let's just call it what it is. You either have to be ambitious and do it yourself, or
not usually in the grip and electric world.
No,
most people on internships are PAs or associate producers. They're writers, they're content creators, they're social media driven positions now. And being able to work around the gear, and when guys are coming into the shop that are department heads or best boy electrics or best boy grips, they see you, they get to know who you are. It's good because it's all about the networking and who you know.
Yeah, and all three of us actually have G&E experience, with obviously you being a gaffer and Josh as
we all hire each other.
Yeah, as a key grip, and then I've been on plenty of productions as a best boy grip to Josh or swing, kind of helping the electrics and
just getting the job
grip
done.
job.
Yeah.
We had one recently in the area where all three of us were working together again. Andrew as the gaffer, Josh as key grip.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, there's a lot to be learned in the G&E department, and I think it's something that I personally would recommend a lot of people dive into, and I think Josh agrees with that sentiment.
I think there's just a massive lack of people in the industry not doing enough different positions, industry wide.
Yeah, I agree. When you're first starting out, it's good to kind of understand all the different departments and how they work together.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't think what you get from film school in that aspect is enough, because that's just it's just the base property of it, really understanding it.
Yeah, it's more the definition versions.
Yeah.
And on set, there's always so many different variables and dynamics that don't flow with how it's done in film school.
Yeah, especially if you want to be a producer. I feel like you should work some crew positions across the board, and or a production coordinator or a manager. You should have a better understanding of what it requires to do the job.
Well, you should understand the procedures.
Some of the most successful people in the area have been in multiple positions or can be in multiple positions. I mean, let's use, some of the latest examples. You're a gaffer, DP, product photographer, but you understand lighting, grip, You understand.
I understand budgets too.
Yep, and that's as a key member of the G&E department.
Yeah, as a department head, you need to understand budgets, and you need to understand. It's always great to have all the toys to play with, but sometimes you just don't have the budget, and you don't have the labor power. You don't have the manpower to do it. So you have to weigh your options and do what's best for production, because ultimately that's why you're there.
Yeah, Josh has a UPM key grip. You've even, to my understanding, done some assisting with your wife, who is a very talented wardrobe designer.
When she's a costume designer and she needs a hand, if there's no one available, or if it just makes more sense for us financially for that job to me help her, and I don't have anything going on, I might as well help her. Yeah. But that kind of just goes back to, making sure that I'm well-rounded, which has always been my goal. Yep. That's why I started doing theater and then got into film. And I always thought that if I was going to be successful at making art, I should be well-rounded. Now, I'm not going to go try and paint because I'm fucking terrible at it. But, you still try to,
It's good to understand what everybody's jobs are on set. And it's also important because I've seen it where the newer people on set, the greener people is the term, sometimes get in people's way just because they don't know what they don't know.
Right. And that's no fault to them.
Yeah, it's not their fault because they've just never been around it. They've never been exposed to it. So when you have a PA trying to help the grip or electric department and crew has the set, so to speak, and he's in there doing something completely unrelated to grip and electric, you're like, well, what are you doing?
So that's a good kind of point of why is it important? Because, a lot, especially on small indie projects, you always get a PA or you get someone from another department that wants to pick up a C-stand or try and help or something like that. Explain why grips and, electric should only hold their gear and why we don't go mess with sound gear and, why does...
Well, I'd say first and foremost, it's about safety, right? First and foremost, safety, that's the pivotal thing, right? We all want to go home. We all want to be safe. We want to respect the location. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And some of the equipment we have is large, heavy, and usually steel or aluminum. And
or electric.
Well, I was going to get to that next. But on the simpler things, like you could damage the location if you're carrying a stand wrong or swing around and hit somebody in the head, a lot of it's just safety. Another reason is just respect to the people that need to handle the gear and know where the gear is. Usually when we're on set, we have a specific area where we call it our staging area. And sometimes PAs help us and then they put something somewhere and haven't communicated with us because they're not on our channel. And we can't talk openly to them unless we go physically talk to them on set.
Yeah, and sometimes that could be pretty far away.
Yeah, and say like, hey, where'd you put that floppy? Oh, it's over there. Okay, well, we can say that over the radio. It's in our staging area. We kind of know where everything is. But with a PA, like they'll put it off in left field, and we won't know where that is, and then we'll be looking for it, and then the
takes
AD
5
will
times
be asking,
as long.
Hey, where's the floppy? Did you set it yet? No, we're looking for it. That makes us look bad. So it's all about the flow and just the way we get things done, and working with each other and knowing where everything is. Second was what Kevin was just mentioning. Part of the department is electric, right? Setting up lights, dealing with power, generators, all that stuff. You don't want to be touching that stuff if you're not qualified, because you could die. Realistically, that's worst case scenario, obviously. Or you could damage the equipment, which is the second worst scenario.
Or the property.
Yeah, you could damage transformers, power box. You could mess some stuff up. So the best thing to do, especially with electric and set lighting department, is just leave that to the guys that are trained in that profession.
Yeah, and I actually have a firsthand example of that on a movie called Dropity that we all had the pleasure of working on.
Oh, I don't remember this. What happened?
No, you were...
Or maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think you blocked it out of your memory. So I was one of the grips. Josh key gripped and Andrew gaffed on it.
Yeah,
and
so
it was a digital caviar production with a lot of rain.
If he's a grip, he shouldn't probably be messing with electricity.
Exactly, but it was raining substantially, and one of the junction...
It was all hands on deck to just try and save everything.
It was...
was this when the lunchbox was going underwater?
Exactly.
On the roof?
Yeah, we didn't pre-rig it for it.
That's exactly what's happening here. So it was a situation where...
This is why you always put your lunchboxes on apple boxes.
Yeah, we elevate them, swamp boxes.
Yeah. So go ahead and can you elaborate a little bit on what a lunchbox is and why we should have done what we did not do?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different forms of a lunchbox, but a lunchbox is basically a junction box that goes out to serviceable for power. Usually it has breakers in place, and it's typically 20 amp service per breaker. And it just goes out to a regular wall outlet or an Edison outlet. That's usually 20 amps of power, and the input power is usually 100 amps at 110 voltage. So, yeah, I mean, the lunchbox...
it allows you to bring power from the generator to...
Yeah, though we were taking proper precautions and we didn't energize the breaker from the distro box to the lunchbox, it was technically off and nobody could have gotten hurt.
Are we sure about that?
You still don't want it to get... You still don't want it to get rained on if it's not
I'm
covered.
sure, because it was almost underwater.
Yeah, so that's... and the location we were at, if Josh, could you give a 10-second brief on the location and how massive the location was?
It was a huge mansion.
Yeah.
Humongous mansion.
And basically what
Howie
had
in the
happened...
Hills? Howie in the Hills,
Humongous
Florida?
mansion.
Yeah, we had ended up shooting on the top of a balcony. And this wasn't any balcony. It was it was from the early 1900s. And the roof was...
Cobblestone.
Yeah, the roof was the floor of the balcony, and it was starting to cave in just because of old age.
Well, production's answer to rain covering was put tents over everything.
The rain was building up, and it was pooling in the center, and the lunchbox was toward the side of the balcony, and the cable was run over. But like I said, the power was off until we energized it and raised it up. But
which at the time when we came on walkie and we, it was me and the other 2 or 3 grips.
And I told my best boy, hey, don't energize that lunchbox yet because... the roof is flooding.
Couldn't get an answer on walkie at the time because it was all hands on deck trying to get everything safe and dry.
They were all getting excited. Production was getting excited. And then, we had to have...
Rain has that magical ability of making everyone, Chicken Little sky is falling.
The main thing, though, is when that happens, I always find if you just stay calm and collected and just watch out for everybody's safety and make sure everything is safe before you do anything. It's a lot better than rushing through and then costing production a lot of time and money on the back end, or having an ambulance call because somebody got shocked.
And that's exactly where I was going with this whole story.
It's not worth it, right? Like, take 15 extra minutes to raise and shore up all of the connectors if there's water, and just make sure everybody's safe, right? Because that's the whole point of this.
And the follow-up point that I'm trying to make is I went on walkie when it was asked to clear everything out, move this, move that. And I said, I don't feel comfortable touching this because it's electric and I am the best boy grip on this job. So grip, electric, two different things.
You did the right thing.
As you guys know, I stay away from electricity.
Yeah.
I've been shocked a lot of times in my personal and professional life, and so now I'm just like, I have
Kevin doesn't even plug in his phone charger without calling somebody.
No, Andrew, can I plug it in? It's in my kitchen. Is this okay? Is this safe?
GFCI.
GFI.
I'm a beer deep.
If you don't understand something, it's better to let someone who does handle it. And the electrician, Sean, ended up confirming after 15 seconds that it was in fact not live and that it could then be moved. But if you don't know, or you're even remotely second guess, what's quite frankly, I would have rather that lunchbox get fried.
That's what you do. You let
but the thing is like, it was never going to get fried. It would have just been wet inside, and it would have dried out. But the thing
if you don't know, you don't know.
And the thing is just, for the record, we changed it out with a dry lunchbox from the truck because that one got soaked.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm curious about that I feel like, we kind of started going down earlier, film school, right? All of us in some way has either went to film school or decided not to go to film school and went another route or whatever. But I'm curious as to you, did you feel like film school was worth it?
Oh, yeah. For sure. No, I can honestly say that. You guys looking at me like that, but yeah, no, film school is worth it. It's funny because when I was at the production company and I was responsible for all the video content, I remember looking back and going, oh yeah, it's good that I had film school experience and just background and reinforcement of that knowledge because I needed it at that time. It was more on the accounting agency advertising side that I pulled from it rather than the technical tradecraft side of this is how you do stuff on set. But it was still important, I think. In my case, I think it's a case specific situation, right? And the thing is I used University of Tampa's film program I would say to its full extent. I was always testing out the equipment, learning the gear, trying to get on as many projects as possible, put myself in the situations where I could fail. Because what I learned was in film school, you can fail. You can do completely the wrong thing and learn from it. And it typically actually helps you because then you'll have somebody there to say, hey, you should have done it this way. Or you'll have people say, oh, that looks great. And then you're just like, no, it doesn't. Why did I do it that way in the first place? But that's more on the visual image side. But there's also the producing side of it because I did tons of projects that they just fell apart. And we had to figure our ways out of them because they just didn't know what they didn't know yet. It was film school. So it's better to fail in film school as far as achieving the effect you're going for, the look or whatever, there than in your professional field where it's your career, it's your livelihood, right? It makes your living.
Yeah.
So that's my theory.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh?
I'm a mixed bag. I mean, I'm sure we'll kind of like cover this topic pretty extensively over the lifespan of the podcast. So I don't want to go too crazy with it just now because I feel like, our opinions will just come out over time. But I feel like film school is very useful depending on what you want to do in life. I feel like if you want to be in camera department or you want to, work audio or, work post-production, or if you kind of have something that you like, you're probably better spent trying to get an internship at a company that does it or get on set as a PA.
I do agree with that.
Work in those departments because the film, unless it's a vocational kind of film school almost you're really not going to get what you should get out of it as opposed to comparative to what you would just get on set. Right.
No, because one of the main things, that's a very good point, Josh. One of the main things is learning from people that have been doing it for years, the veterans, right? Because there are wrong ways and right ways to do things. Now, they might both be safe and, they might be seen properly in the eyes of film schools, but to a industry veteran, there's blatant right ways and wrong ways to do things. And it calls you out on set if you're like, oh, he went to film school and then he's doing it this way. Oh, look what film school taught him.
Right.
I've seen it. I've been
and it's
there.
a pretty common thing to hear,
and
too.
I've done it myself when I was getting out of school and then I learned the right way.
Right.
So that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, film school for the writers, the producers, the directors.
Above the line jobs?
Yeah, maybe even an editor. Right?
Yeah.
Really useful. It's going to get you the contacts that you're going to call on the rest of your life. You're going to learn valuable business. There's just a lot of stuff that you're going to get from film school. But I just think from the below the line crew side, if that's where you want to be. And here's the other problem, right? That film schools I feel like face, and just like the economy or like the job market in general faces, which is not enough vocational positions are being filled nowadays, right?
No, it's true. I'm working on a show right now in Orlando. It's a big National Geographic show, episodic, and they can't find people. They can't find the labor that they need, trained labor, skilled labor that they need from the union to fulfill the positions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
better off
happening.
if you kind of know where you want to be. And the big problem that, kind of circle back around, the big problem I feel like with that is that so many people want to be a Roger Deakins or be a Quentin Tarantino. Everyone feels like they're a director or a DP or something.
But the thing is most of those people...
The percentage of people that are going to do it are so low. I mean, I went to film school thinking that, right? But you immediately learn that you're going to have to pivot if you want to even have a career in the industry because otherwise you're going to be...
And I'm not really sure if those guys... started out knowing that they were going to do that. I think a lot of them just probably were in the right place
They
at the
just
right
got
time.
into making movies.
Yeah, they
you
got
know?
into making movies,
Yeah.
and those people that you're talking about, they were in a different echelon of movie making. The production was different. It was on film. It wasn't digital. Everything was a different world.
Everyone's path is different,
Right.
so that's always something to take into account too. But you know, I just feel like there shouldn't be such a big rush to become, you know, to be an above the line person. You know, that's a big problem I think we have. And then I just also think, like, know yourself, get on projects, learn a little bit, find out what you really may like in film, and realize, you know, just from a standpoint, you know, go in with full eyes open and know that, you know, I may need to work in the industry
Right.
to be in the industry. I may not be able to walk, you know, the red carpet with my idea,
Yeah.
but I may be able to make a really good living as an audio tech, right?
Yeah, and historically,
you know,
if you look at IMDb credits and you look at all the people that are really the movers and shakers of the different trades and different departments and the department heads, they've either come up through family members, aunts, uncles, right, and they're second, third generation of that department because they were raised doing it, because that's what their mom or dad did, right, or brother and sister. So it's the relationships, right?
Yep.
And the thing is I think it's interesting how you said about above the line and below the line. I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but there's definitely a defining line on that, and just like you said,
so if
the
you
job
don't
security.
know, if you don't know, real quick, above the line are your producers, your writers, your directors, your talent. You know, everyone else is basically below the line.
Right. So
Every other
all
position.
those names,
Post-production, everything.
on the call sheet, all those names in the rolling credits. Yep, that's all below the line.
Yep.
That's also all your allied crafts. That's everybody in
Yep.
IATSE, right?
Yep.
So, and all the different unions.
So there's a lot of below the line personnel.
Well, and you
Lot
even
more
have,
positions.
some of your below the line personnel that get title cards.
Sure.
Your costume designers, your editor, they're all considered below the line.
Yep.
So
There's a lot more opportunity below the line, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
That's
I mean-
by no means a negative.
and I'm not trying to push someone to give up on their dream, but I think that you just need to look at the idea is that we're trying to give you a guide to the industry, right? We're trying to lead you down the path of the reality of what the industry is and how you can go about navigating it. And so I think it's an important thing to point out.
Well, the barrier of entry is a lot easier below the line.
Well, I mean, look,
And-
I networked with you, Andrew, and
Yeah.
from there ended up meeting Josh, and from
Right.
there, he brought me on to be a grip under him several times.
Right,
I
right.
actually first AC'd for you when you were at the old production company,
Yeah.
or the company you used to work for,
Right.
And those are both below the line positions. But
Oh yeah, well, I
but
can
now-
count on two hands how many projects I've produced versus how many projects I've gaffed.
Well, and it doesn't mean that just because you're below the line, you're never going to get where you want to go.
Well, you can make your way up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you make your way up. There's plenty of DPs that have become, DPs that were gaffers.
Oh, yeah.
Or, or a camera operator
Yeah,
or, stuff like that.
Well,
So,
most DPs start as a second,
Right.
Second AC or a loader. So,
Yep, it's very common, and you hear about it quite often. You just have to be willing to
Right.
put in those hours and that time. And I mean, just me personally, I've learned a lot is an understatement, being a grip with you guys and just being on set and
Yeah.
understanding how a truck is run and how to properly set up a C-stand. It's something that I thought I knew, but then you learn the right way and you go, oh, this piece of metal is actually really useful if you do it right.
And I think it also just comes down to evaluate your experiences on set once you're on set, coming from a less experienced perspective, right? Go through the day of how things went with whatever position you were in, right? I mean, I work with guys, they're career PAs, production assistants, right? I mean, some people think a PA is a young person's game, and that you start as a PA and then you go up and move into producer, production manager, right? Unit production manager, all that kind of stuff. No, I mean, I do jobs, big commercials where the PAs have been a PA. That's all I've known them for 12 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're 50 years old and they're PAs and they're perfectly happy and they make a good living, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, like $300, $250, $300 for 10 per day. I mean, That's not a bad living if you're
Plus
doing.
OT,
Yeah,
you know?
if you're doing 75% of the year PA work, that's a good salary.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Well,
PAs
and if
go
you-
into OT.
Yeah, and if you live in New York, then you can even be DGA.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean, yeah, and you get benefits.
yeah.
So, no, there's a lot of places to think, but going back to evaluating your time on set, I've seen guys that they're like, oh, I want to be in the grip and electric department. All right, well, come on, as an intern for us or something, or a PA, a grip PA, right? And they'll be doing it, and they'll be like, oh man, at the end of the day, they're like, oh, this was rough, and they're, granted, it's rough, but like your mindset, it's how you're wired. Right. There's different mindsets of different people and how they think. Doesn't necessarily mean they're bad at their job. It's just they haven't found what they're supposed to do. Right. I mean,
Maybe they should shift over to wardrobe.
Yeah,
or
there's
production
different
design.
Yeah,
or,
if you're passionate about movies and you want to be on set, that's great. But maybe the grip and electric department or art department or props or costume, whatever it might be, you have to kind of figure out where you fit in. And I don't think you get to figure that out unless you actually do the job for a couple of days or a couple of projects.
Yeah, and I don't think that version of figuring it out in film school works because
No.
that's not the real version of it.
No, because like I said, that's where you can fail and be okay with it, right? Because you have a security blanket there, right?
Yep.
You're getting a grade, but chances are in film school, if you're applying yourself and doing the job, right, you're
So
going to get the
with that being
grade.
said, like if you could go back now and talk to young in college Andrew Ortoski, what would you tell him giving everything you know now?
Ooh, I'm super excited to hear this.
Oh, man. Let me think about that for a second.
Well, you knew it, young Andrew 12 years ago.
Yeah.
How was young Andrew?
Much like older Andrew.
Yeah, I haven't changed much.
Yeah, it really hasn't changed all that much. He's gotten grumpier,
Oh,
but you
have your moments.
Yeah, I get grumpy.
Yeah.
You get
just-
hangry. Oh my God.
People do things they shouldn't, and could potentially harm themselves. I get angry. That's really when I only raise my voice when I see somebody about to get hurt or something. Or
You've shut down productions before.
Well, he got a nickname on a indie film that we were on not too long after college.
Oh, you referring to? Yeah, that one.
Were you gaffing that?
Nope.
No,
I was going to, but then it didn't.
You were best boy.
Yeah, I was best boy for the rental house.
He was best boy electrician, and I was just on it as a grip. And one of the guys is loading the truck, and he has no shoes on.
All right, hold on. So you got to set the story
Now
up.
this is
It had been raining.
Yeah.
All night. We were on an overnight. Our call time was 6 p.m. the day before. We were wrapping at like 10 a.m. And we were all exterior at a house
had been raining.
in the mud. And this technician, right, who I use the term loosely.
Yeah.
he was more of a guy that needed a job.
So here's the thing. I'm not going to say Andrew's wrong. He's completely right in this. But this is where, Andrew got the nickname of Smokey.
Nobody calls me that anymore,
Yeah.
thank goodness.
I haven't heard that nickname.
Well,
I'm
because
excited I heard it now.
Smokey the Bear, the fire
Yeah.
marshal, like only you can protect,
Yeah, so this guy was loading carts on a lift gate
with no shoes.
with no shoes on. He was in his bare feet and had a cart run over his foot on the lift gate. He'd have a broken foot.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Needless to say, I never saw him work again. But,
He made some other bad choices.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he yelled at him. It was pretty well known. And then one of the other guys on the set heard it and was like,
No, he was in the back of the truck loading the front of the truck.
he heard it and he was like, Andrew, Smokey the Bear, calm down, bro.
Yeah.
And ever since then,
I was done.
that's when the nickname
I didn't want
came.
him to hurt himself,
well,
man.
you have shut down productions for 30 minutes, 45 an hour because of lightning, because of dangers to the crew, which
Well, yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
which
you have to.
me
yeah.
as a crew member under you on some of these jobs, I am super grateful.
Yeah,
because-
well, no,
But that's usually the sort of thing that indie producers don't understand as
Right.
opposed to studio work where
Well, and there's standards, right? You have different guidelines that are set up by different industry organizations that they set the standards, and the unions have to abide by them, or there can be heavy fines.
Yep.
So when you're on indie movies, you just hope that production management, mainly the AD staff, understands it, because that's who you go to and tell them. You don't tell the DP, hey, we're shut down because of lightning. You tell the AD, and then he holds the whole production. And if we have to, we shut down the generator, lower the lights, lower the frames, whatever,
and we
lower
were,
the condor, whatever.
The job we were all on recently, the AD staff definitely understood that. I mean, she was the first AD. I do forget her name.
Which one? The one we just did?
Yeah.
Eden.
Yeah. She asked you on 2 different occasions, hey, are we still good to go? And you said both times, yeah, we're fine, no problems.
Yeah, there was no lightning in the area.
The storm was kind of going around us.
Yeah, it literally broke up right around us. So it was good.
She was prepared to stop everything.
Absolutely. No, she was very cognizant of it.
And that was great. I mean, we kept working and we kept monitoring lightning and weather and, our 12 buys in the air, making sure that wasn't going to fly away.
The worst thing you can be doing is trying to be reactive than proactive in a weather situation, because that's when people get hurt. That's when stuff gets damaged. It's not good.
Yeah.
Well, that's just in general on sets. I mean, you should always be thinking about, one thing that I say with like my crew guys.
It's not always the case.
And people that I hire, especially multiple times I hire, or the people who I only hire one time and don't rehire, is because they're missing common sense.
Yeah.
That's something that I know Josh, you and I have had
like
multiple conversations
about. In itself.
It is. I'm just touching up on it for just a few seconds. Is if you're going to be in this industry, just have common sense. Yeah. Just think. You don't have to be the best chess player in the world, but think one step forward.
It's just really good to say to slow it down and think for a moment.
Yeah. One thing, a term that has always resonated with me that a veteran told me was slow is pro. Right. Now, that doesn't mean move at the speed of molasses when you're on set. Move safely and efficiently, but don't plow through people to get your job done.
Yep.
Right. Because everybody's got a job out there to do.
Yeah, I mean, even the military has a term similar, like slow is fast, fast is slow.
Yeah, right. And, it's interesting. And I had a point, but I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, it's all good. Hey, that's the first time this whole thing.
Oh, Smokey.
Really?
I can't believe you hadn't heard that yet.
I am so using it now. Because even on the 2-story media jobs, I mean, you pretty much become the safety officer as well. So
there we go.
I mean, if there's no AD,
No, and I'm saying this in sure. I appreciate kind of way, because a lot of our jobs are anywhere between 4 and 6 crew,
right?
For us, and it works, and it works really well, and we just all have to kind of help each other out,
right?
So, Josh, where do you want to go? What's next?
I mean,
Ortoski.
My big thing is I feel like, can you explain for people your relationship with the DP as a gaffer? How does that work from the day that you're hired till the day that you wrap? What do you have to do for it? Because, I mean, I don't think some people, understand that relationship exactly,
sure,
or know how it's supposed to play out. They just know that you're the guy that's there to help get the lights up, and, just kind of explain that process a little bit.
Yeah, so, all right, let me break this down into segments, because there's a couple different components. I'd say first off, build a relationship with the DP, so he's comfortable with you, right? It's just like having a coworker. You guys are working to achieve a goal. Usually, the relationship and the way you guys communicate is critical. This business is all about communication and understanding what each other's limitations are to the production due to budget or labor is very important. And to set those standards first so they understand what we're working with, right? If they want to do some major light control and we don't have the equipment or the labor available, find solutions, right? Always come up with some sort of alternative solution rather than bring problems to the table, right? Chances are that DP has already got a lot on his plate, and he's trying to figure out all the other components that he has to worry about as the person that's responsible for shaping the visual story of the project. So it's important to be able to take and compartmentalize the information that you have at your disposal and not take it all and put it on him, right? The way I look at it is when you're hiring a department head, you're not only hiring somebody that can run a crew, knows how to put the equipment up, but also knows how to manage the information that they're given, because there's good information and there's bad information, right? And you have to filter what is the bad information, and you have to take it and you have to manipulate it in your head to make it work for the solution, right? You don't want to stress out your boss. If you're at a regular job, right, a regular corporate job, you don't want to keep bringing bad news to your boss. That just makes his life miserable or her life miserable, right? So you want to manage those expectations and help them figure a solution out. I always work with them I always have the mindset of, okay, we're in this together, right? It's maybe not the best case scenario because we maybe don't have the resources to get it done the way we want, but let's come up with something that works for both of us. And I'm saying this because this is mainly from an indie perspective of the movies I've gaffed, is you don't always have the budget for fly swatters and condors and 18Ks and all this big light control. So what do? You figure it out. Second, I would say is understand the DP's mentality. There's a lot of DPs that are technical, and there's a lot of DPs that are more visually story-driven, and they care more about the world they're creating on camera, less than the fixtures they're using to create that world.
Right.
Because lighting is very subjective. There's no wrong way to light anything. There's just different ways to create different emotions and play on the scene differently.
Yeah. How important is that when you're talking with them to, the color science and, the colors that you're going to choose to do a scene with and all that, as far as the emotions of the scene that you want to get out and all that.
Well, one of the DPs I work with a lot here in the Tampa Bay area, I've done a couple of movies with him now. A few bigger budget as far as indies go, a couple $100,000 to, a few $1 million.
Go ahead and say the name just so we have context.
Brandon. Yeah, Brandon with Digital Caviar.
Brandon Hyde.
Yeah, Brandon Hyde. Good guy. Done a few movies with him. So I don't ask him, hey, how do you want me to light this? What fixtures do you want me to use? I ask him, how do you see this looking on camera? How do you see this world? What's the quality of light? Does it look like a sunlight source coming through a window? At night, is it motivated by practicals? How do you see this in your head? And then from there, I work on creating a scheme technically that works within budget and on time and on schedule to figure it out, and I mean, that's how it's done. There's a lot of more intricacies in it, but the main thing is understand what type of DP you're working with. Is it a DP that wants to be hands-on, that tells you, I want these type of fixtures, I want a Joker 800, an M18, and a couple Titan tubes, with a sky panel, with a Chimera? And you're like, okay, great. And then he literally tells you where you want them. And then you're more of a technician and you're just executing. Or is it the type of DP that says, oh, this is this kind of look I want. I want a nice source here. I want a nice quality here. I want to feel it this way. I want a little pop here. I want a little negative here. It all depends, right? And that's just how they work. And I've seen it from big DPs on big major commercials. I was doing a commercial for the NFL. And the DP, I don't remember his name. He was the DP for Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie. And he literally just came in and said, I want do, like fixture here, fixture here, fixture here, plotted it out for us. And we just executed it. So, and I was just the best boy electric on that. But, and then the gaffer relied on me just to run power and get that going. And we did it.
Can you, for someone that doesn't know, can you explain, you used a word that some people may not understand if they're not from the G&E world, but quality of light. Can you explain that?
So quality of light, the way I understand quality of light is it's not the light that is coming off of the source. It's the light that's hitting the subject that's going to be on camera, or this, the object, whether it's product, person, place, floor, whatever. It's how that light looks on that person. How natural does it feel? Does it feel motivated? Does it feel unmotivated? Does it feel harsh, like a spotlight or a very sharp source? Or is it soft and rappy and pleasant? it really all depends on the style, right? If you're shooting, like we just did a action film, and there was a lot of soft light in places, but then there was a lot of sharp light as well. So it really just all depends.
Because they wanted to be a little edgy.
They wanted a little edge and separation and make it look futuristic. So it really just all depended on what the scene called for. Right. And also going back to what the DP sees in his head.
Which actually is where I'm heading. That was Speed of Time.
Speed of Time,
The DP was from New York.
Yeah, Alex.
Alex Galatano.
Yes. Yep.
Alex Galatano. How was your relationship with him? He was a New York DP. He got your name as a recommendation. Yep. And he just calls you some random morning, afternoon, says, "Hey, I'm Alex, want to hire you as a DP for a 4-day project down in St. Pete."
Yeah.
How does that conversation progress? Because you gave us the example with Brandon Hyde.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You've worked with him for years.
Yep.
Good dude. Josh and I have done a lot of work for them as well.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable, but that relationship you were able to build over the course of 3-4 years, something to that effect.
Right.
But Alex, that relationship was what? Five phone calls before the job started? 6 phone calls?
Yeah, one phone call. There was a conference call with myself and Josh as the key grip. And then we met on set, really.
No, you had told me that you had a few like side conversations.
Oh yeah, we had a couple text message emails back and forth.
An extra 5-minute call here, email there, 10-minute call. But I mean, at the end of the day, you had what, maybe 10 points of conversation leading up to the job.
Right.
How do you build that relationship and develop the process with a DP that he's coming down here for one job and that's it?
So one thing I learned early on is have the DP send you example images from other movies, other content that's already created, other media, that shows what he's looking for as far as quality of light, types of color, contrast, that kind of thing. So you can see right off the bat and get on the same page with him so you can understand.
What kind of DP was he? You gave us, there's 2 different types.
So it was interesting because at first he was more of the technical DP. He was the more just telling me, hey, I want the fixture here. I want this fixture here. I want this fixture here. And then funny enough, on the first day when we wrapped, he's like, hey, man, I hope, I wasn't driving you too crazy today telling you exactly what I wanted, where I wanted. And I said, no, absolutely not. That's my job. I'm here to execute your vision. And however you want to work it, that's fine with me. And it was interesting because after that conversation, he started telling me more that, he came up in grip and electric. So here is a DP that had started in the grip and electric department. He understands all the different types of capabilities of the equipment. So he just takes that knowledge and uses it. Mm-hmm. Similar to how when I was at the production company and I was shooting things, I would communicate with my gaffer because I am the same way. I understand the capabilities of the equipment. So it worked out well. But then it was funny, by I think day 4 of the show, he was just kind of like letting me do my thing. And he's, we were all on the same wavelength and we were dialed in because we had 3 prior days.
Yeah, the first day is always the roughest.
Yeah, the first day it was more like, okay, let's just get through this. And we were in a house upstairs, downstairs, all over in the attic. And it was all over the place. So, and it's the first time working with somebody. So, you want to make sure you're even keel and you're working with them and, you want to let them know that you're here for them and you're on their side to get this done, right? Because there's always that battle of, I don't know if it's a battle, but I'll say battle. The DP versus production, right? The DP wants to make The Departed, but production just wants to go shoot a run and gun documentary style thing, right? So, and sometimes that's not always the case, but it depends, right? And that's what I find mostly on these, because the DPs, it's great, because I love working with people that are very optimistic of the schedule, and I love people that are ambitious, because, that's awesome. First and foremost, I do this because I enjoy it. I don't do it because I don't know. That's what I've always done. It's what I've done now for 12 years. And that's my passion, right? Lighting and working with people and being on set. That's why I enjoy it. That's what makes 14, 15-hour days pass by easily. Some people go, oh my gosh, I've been on set 8 hours. I can't deal with this. It's probably not, you probably shouldn't be on set then. There might be another position in the world of film and production that's good, but that's probably not where you should be. So going back to it, by the end of the show on the fourth day, we had created a blackout tent in the middle of the day next to the Don Cesar Hotel here in St. Petersburg. And he basically came out and said, "Oh, this is great, nice work." And there was no guidance. There were no real factors. He just told me what he wanted it to look like, what he wanted it to feel like. And we used Titan tubes to create motivated lighting of practical lights of a driving scene. And we were doing poor man's process, which is basically a car standing still, but we're using lighting for environmental effects to make it look like the car's moving. And you do that through lighting. And we set the Titan tubes up, put a chase pattern on them, and he loved it. And that's kind of how we did it. So like those next 3 days of production were pretty much autopilot for me. He would just kind of be like, "Okay, I want it to look like this," and then I would do it. And there were some tweaks here and there, but for the most part, we were on the same page, I would think.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Filmmaker's Guide to the Industry. If you gained any value from the show, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you have suggestions for guests or topics, contact us on Instagram at Filmmaker's Guide to the Industry. This show was recorded at Two Stories Media Studios in Clearwater, Florida, and produced by Two Stories Media and Greenlit Entertainment. That's a wrap on this episode of FGI. It was edited by Ken Davis. FGI is a production of Two Stories Media and Greenlit Entertainment. Subscribe and listen on Spotify, Apple, or wherever your favorite podcasts are.